Hey everyone, it's Cleveland here. As you may or may not have heard, there have been some major developments over the past month or so concerning the higher-ups at Arcanists and the game's future. Siggy and Pur3's have ultimately parted ways. So we're going to go over Pur's announcements, talk about some of his evidence citing issues working with Siggy, and also take a look at Siggy's response to Pur. After that, I'll share my side of the story in detail and take a look at a document that I made unpacking my experiences working with Siggy. My goal here is not to demean either party, but I'd like to share my story. Please recognize, again, this is my personal story and opinion, and other people may have different experiences, which you're free to share if you have any in the comments. This will be a long video, so feel free to jump around or use the timestamps in the description. First, some context. For those who don't know, Pur3's is the developer of the game. He owns the code and is responsible for the game's existence and all its updates. Siggy has been involved in direct communications with Jagex and has worked to obtain a license for the game so it could launch on Steam without copyright issues. This license is the gateway to the game's recent arrival on Steam on July 15th, 2024. It's essentially an intellectual property license granting Pur the rights to use the original Arcanist assets created by Jagex. Prior to Steam, a license was not needed since basically the game wasn't being monetized, the original Arcanist was not playable anymore, and Jagex just really didn't care. So let's read Pur's announcement with that being said. At everyone, the game's future is unknown. Over the last month and a half, I've been trying to secure the Jagex deal due to having to make the decision to part ways with Siggy. Some reasons for parting ways were not adding me to the company when leading everybody on that he did, refusing to pay artists, making absurd requests that weren't based in reality, poor treatment of staff, constantly lied about working on things and twists everything to fit his narrative, was providing zero value to the project, yet leeching off it, so it was a net negative to keep him around. He never listened to anything I said and was always making ultimatums. You can now add being a thief to the list, and he might ultimately destroy everything we've worked so hard for. Jagex has been fairly adamant that they need us to come to a mutual agreement or else they'll terminate the contract. I've tried explaining the situation to them, but to no avail. I was willing to let him keep a 10% share or keep the Patreon money, but he's only able to make absurd requests, such as handing the project over to him. His last and final request is to buy him off for an undisclosed amount, upwards of $6,000, which is more than I've made in the last 5 years of the project. Otherwise, he'll attempt to terminate the deal by the end of the week. Not to mention he's stolen all the Patreon money since July, several $1,000s. If the deal does fall through, very likely, we'll be forced to rebrand and remove all Jagex IP assets. How and if this will be done is yet to be decided. A lot of choices will need to be made. I'll be contacting Jagex one last time, but there's a good chance it'll amount to nothing. This will be a big undertaking, but I'm sure we can still pull through. A lot of unknowns, and I don't want to have to come forth with this news, but the community deserves to know. Okay, so first thing I'll say is that that's a lot to take in, and also that this is still in process, the negotiations and figuring out the whole situation. Essentially, internal disagreements and miscommunications, along with Siggy holding on to Pur's share of the Patreon since July, led to his removal from the Discord, and negotiations so far have been difficult, like I said, still in process. If the deal's not reached, we would have to basically completely rebrand the game, which involves things like changing artwork, sounds, and music, spell icons, book names, some spell names, probably a big undertaking. You might be wondering, why is this an issue in the first place? Well, Pur doesn't actually own the license. Siggy does. The reasons for this are complex, but just know it's well within Siggy's power to terminate the license and forcibly remove the game from Steam. A few weeks later, Pur posts this follow-up along with this evidence document to back up some of those claims because they are quite charged. And here is his evidence to back up his claims, and we're going to take a look at that. So, his first point reads, not adding me to the company when leading everybody on that he did. Essentially, Siggy tells Pur that he would like a formal agreement between them, designating who owns what. Pur says, let's keep it informal, and fast forward to today when Siggy says he offered Pur a formal share, but Pur declined, which you can see here in this first screenshot. He says, I offered you a formal share, LOL, but you asked to keep things informal. Okay, so scrolling down, we see where he says, I literally explained this to you and you rejected it. Here he was claiming that he offered a formal share, but I'm not exactly sure how much that feels like a strict offer. That being said, Pur says, for now I'd like to stay informal, no reason to make things more complicated. And a little bit further down, there is the screenshot which says, "If you'd like me to formally enlist you, Pur, as a company director, mind providing me with the details in the screenshot?" And Pur does. And here he says, after we thought we were getting a deal at the start of 2023 in these screenshots, he sets up a company and requests my information so I can be added to the company as a quote-unquote director. And they don't really talk about it until 9 days before Steam. Reasons behind that, I don't know. You'd have to ask Pur. But anyway, moving on. At the end here, Siggy mentions that he could issue a cease and desist at any time, which is a bit ominous to point out, given that both parties ultimately want the game to succeed. But here in this lighter screenshot, the TLDR, he mentions that. Moving on, Pur explains Siggy's reluctance to pay artists and describes that paying artists is in fact easy to set up and that they deserve some compensation for their hard work. And I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but you guys can obviously take a look. I will link this in the description of the video. Next, making absurd requests, and here's, well, me. I made it, Dad. I'm famous. I'm going to go over this a bit later, so we won't touch on this much. But essentially, he asked for one of my raw YouTube videos, the raw file, and he wanted to publish it on his own channel. So here is this lofty offer from Siggy where he says, "First, pay me 7.5k pounds. Then if the game does not make 40k pounds in its first year, I will rejoin with a 40% share." The elephant in the room here is that there's absolutely no way the game makes 40 pounds in a year. Over several years, Pur has made essentially a fraction of that. There is a section on poor treatment of staff. You guys can look at that, along with a grievance from a specific mod concerning Siggy, who is not named. You can see some ultimatums. Siggy threatened to resign if not given server ownership, which you can take a look at in the first screenshot. "You have full control over the game and its servers, and I asked to be the server owner for the Discord, something that I would ask for as a contractual requirement with the formal JX deal anyway. If you don't wish to agree to my terms here, then I will be stepping down both as project lead and as moderator," which he did end up doing, only to be reinstated the next day, and he still remained with the project throughout that time. Here is where he withheld the Patreon funds since July. And moving down here, I think this is one of the most telling screenshots, which says, "I would never keep your share, Raffle." Of course, he's currently keeping Pur's share, so there's a bit of some irony there. Continuing to scroll, Siggy has built a reputation for saying that he will accomplish things that he indeed doesn't, which is what Pur points out here. And for example, setting timelines on things that don't get done. And there are a few examples. We'll begin writing that up later today. I'll get that to you within a couple of days, in the next few hours, couple of days, coming days, next week, etc. So here's some evidence of offer negotiations, and further down, some consistent difficulties with communication. Won't go too deep into that. He says things are always bad according to me. They disagreed on everything. I don't talk much, and he doesn't listen, and then blames me for lack of communication. So it sounds like they don't really fit as partners. Seems like Pur doesn't really communicate well or much at all, and Siggy tends to over-communicate or not communicate very concisely. So this section at the bottom here is pretty telling to me. Now you may be thinking, okay, but he did get the deal with Jagex. He did what he said he would do, right? And Pur's response to this is, yeah, he did, and it was fair of me to offer a 50-50 split 3 years ago. Okay, so apparently he did offer a 50-50 split of the profits 3 years ago. However, it's not fair for him to take it with the amount of work that he's putting in. Now he's saying, well, Siggy hasn't done much work, and so that's just an absurd offer. A deal with Jagex means nothing if we are sitting here not advertising and growing the game, all of which he said he was going to do, which I can attest to as well as a staff member. He's getting free money, I get it. Of course, he does not want to give that up. Putting in next to no work for a $1,000 payout is decent. Meanwhile, I'm putting in 20 to 40 hours. He can claim he's putting in work, but he has nothing to show for it. Since the deal is the only thing I can think of that required effort, was sending some emails to Jagex to get the Arcanists.com redirect going, and maybe some work on the Steam page. Other than that, it was just posting how many Steam impressions and wish lists we were getting, and I think one Reddit post. I don't know about you, but I would rather have that money be given to the talented asset creators who deserve it, even if it's just a drop in the bucket, as he calls it. Okay, so those are some telling screenshots. And then at the end here, if we move down, he just says, hopefully you can shed some light on this situation. And he does take some accountability, which I find admirable. Some of my own shortcomings include not voicing my true feelings when things arise, hoping things will work out without my involvement, not being willing to make the big decisions, and probably the biggest one, not saying no. I just kind of passively agree, even though I don't. It doesn't really matter. Of course, lately I've had to start being more assertive, so I'm not walked over, which I believe he is doing. And when you reach the end, he says you're backed into a wall. So that's a bit of a synopsis of Pur3's document. Again, I'll put this in my description so you guys can take a closer look if you'd like, and we're going to move on to Siggy's response. So a few weeks pass by, and we get hit with Siggy's response, which is up on the website with in-game theme. You know, it's all buttered up, and we get here a message from the game director Siggy to the Arcanists community. I'm going to take a moment to address the recent allegations. My top priority remains to find a way forward that safeguards the retention of the signed commercial licensing agreement with Jagex. And I think scrolling down here, the first thing to note is acknowledged communications weakness. Pur3's has admitted that communication is his worst attribute, but there has been no effort to improve this aspect. Here, I think, personally, it's important for Siggy to look at potential flaws in his own communication style. So it's clear Pur3 struggles to communicate and is passive, while Siggy at times over-communicates in ways that can be difficult to understand. So I believe, you know, it's a two-way street, and it's important to take some personal responsibility here. Okay. Regarding the UI, this was the focus for Siggy for years, and these changes to the UI were run by Pur3 and Cruel, a staff member with UI expertise. Siggy claims that Pur3 rarely shared his thoughts, but Pur3 shows that he gave feedback, but really didn't feel like the UI was any better than our current one, and so that's why he never implemented it. So all in all, I would say Siggy should consider that just because he shares UI concepts, which you guys can see down here, some of these are screenshots, some of these are UI concepts, doesn't mean that they have to be implemented. Yeah, okay, no, here they are. So here's some of his UI concepts. Sorry, I got a little confused there for a second, guys. And so you guys can see, yeah, Pur3 ultimately thought that those were not any better than our current ones. So on to the big honcho is this announcement, as I like to call it. As we're going to scroll down here, it's quite a long document, is monetization and donations. I have the first sentence selected. I want to assure the community that their contributions are secure on my end. The context for this is, so obviously Pur3 has accused Siggy of stealing over 1K Patreon funds, and he showed the PayPal logs to prove that. Siggy's response is, I want to assure the community that their contributions are secure, but the community is left to just take his word for it, and there's no further explanation of where the funds are, why they are held, and if they will be returned. Last thing I'd like to point out here is the poll. So at the very end, after he gives some examples of what he's accomplished, in this nice green color here, he says, vote now, decide the pathway for our future. Join us on the Arcanist Referendum Discord server to cast your vote, a new sort of offshoot Arcanist community that he implemented after he got banned by Pur3 from the Discord. Please be aware that the poll is being conducted on Discord to maintain accuracy in the voting process. I just have to question this a bit. I'd like to point out, what's the point of a poll, especially conducted on a new Arcanist referendum server, with a fraction of the Arcanist community as members, likely mostly people who support Siggy. So there's no way you'd get an unbiased representation of the whole community from a poll. And the irony in that last sentence about accuracy, like I'm making this statement now, is that there's no way to achieve accuracy here. Like, not to mention it's unclear what Siggy expects to do with the responses. So use them as leverage, somehow saying, the community said it's time for you to buy me out, Pur3, so do it. Or the community said that they want me to terminate the contract, so do it, or whatever the poll results are. And finally, just a note, the Discord invite link has been dead. By default, they expire after just one day, so Siggy, if you're watching this, load up a permanent link on that and you may get more poll responses. If you are enjoying this so far, please drop a like and subscribe, and I would really appreciate it. It helps me out with the algorithm, and I'm on my way to 500 subscribers. Thanks so much. All right, now we are going to transition to my evidence document. Okay, here I outline my struggles with Siggy over the years. In light of this falling out with Pur and Siggy, I just wanted to present my side. Okay, that's basically it. I wanted to provide my perspective. First off, we have YouTube channel micromanagement. I understand some of these may appear innocent and in good faith, however, it did not feel that way. Instead, it felt like Siggy was pushing his own agenda or running his own YouTube channel vicariously through me. So again, this did not feel like a well-intentioned viewer giving feedback on a video. It feels a bit more subversive or malicious in a way. So you can take a look at some of these screenshots. Basically, change this title, change this thumbnail, add this logo, take out this, add that, create a tutorial video, etc. Moving on, asking for the raw file of my new player guide to post on his own channel. Okay, so my new player guide is one of my most successful videos on my entire channel. I have following this text a conversation. It's going to speak for itself. For some context, at the time Siggy had about 280 subscribers and I had 260. And he has just posted one video in the past year, and obviously I've posted several. So we're going to dive into this conversation, look at it pretty closely because this is dear to my heart. Just wanted to say the content you've been producing and uploading to YouTube is really good. I appreciate you. I had actually planned to work on uploading a beginner's guide to the Arcanists official YouTube channel after I finished working on our gameplay trailer with custom soundtrack. He has been working on that trailer for quite a while. Would you be up for sharing the raw, highest definition version that was produced when you exported it from video editing software, in case I didn't know what raw meant, file, with me to upload on the official channel, given it's already been more widely advertised? Could tweak your vid to shout you out and tell people to visit your channel for more content. And I could link the beginner's guide video with the official trailer itself, which I predict will get a good number of views. Okay, I'd like to point out that first, this is plagiarism, and it's just not how you do marketing. I've worked in marketing for 3 years, and I run my own YouTube channel. I am not special, but I know a few things. So, moving on. Can direct a lot of traffic to your channel content that way, but given the YouTube algorithm, it'll work more effectively if your guide is also uploaded to my channel. Can explain how that works in more detail if you want. I'm very intrigued because that's, again, not how marketing works. So I just say thank you. If that makes sense, LOL, all a bit convoluted to explain. Perhaps it's convoluted because your request is indeed convoluted. This example here that he gives is ridiculous. Say the trailer I upload to Arcanists official gains 100k views. Just as an example, I didn't use 100k to, play up this offer that I'm trying to make you or anything. I just chose 100k just because, it's just an example. By uploading your beginner's guide video to the same channel, the YouTube algorithm likely to suggest people watch content from the same channel straight after they've finished watching the trailer. So, endorsing your content by also uploading to my channel and asking people to check you out. Creates a chain of interest by leading people to discover more content. It's unlikely people will see your vid as the second suggestion after the trailer, because it's from a different channel. Just want to increase the number of avenues people are able to discover you, really. Up to you whether you want to share the guide vid, and happy for me to upload on my channel also. And I will tweak the vid to advertise you as the producer and plug your YouTube. Guys, this is, again, not how marketing works. I could easily do all of this on my own channel and get more views, get more eyeballs. But what he's saying is that it's going to be this huge benefit for me to post on his channel, which only has about 20 more subscribers and significantly less activity than my own. So again, not really the best argument here. I straight up say, I will not share the raw file. I do not think re-uploading on your channel is appropriate given you didn't commission me to make the video. However, you are free to promote my guide through Arcanist social platforms or a community post on your YouTube channel. So I'm very direct here. No. However, I also give him options. I feel like this is reasonable. Of course, just had a bigger picture in mind and message about conveying community collaboration and endorsement. So he's still trying to convince me in the back of his mind, like, oh, I wonder how far I can try to stretch this, even though he said no. This conversation should have ended right here. It's 9:29 p.m. Should have been done. All right, Coevil, thank you so much for your time. Have a great night. He continues for an hour and a half, and we shall see what ends up here. Then he says, doesn't matter, lol. I guess giving me a little bit of attitude or showing some frustration. Only wanted to showcase your content on my channel to further increase chances people will check you out. Kind of like the tone of this seems like, oh, why would you even reject this? I'm giving you such a great offer. If/when my YouTube grows to become more popular, if/when, your video on my channel will introduce people to the style of content you make. You know what also would introduce people to the style of content I make? My own channel. People are often lazy and don't bother watching smaller creators, despite promoting you. People being able to hear your voice is what will entice them, which they can do on my own channel, far more than text-based promos, if that makes sense, lol. No, it does not. It makes sense in my head, but maybe not getting across very well, IDK. Yes. You don't promote other channels' video by uploading it on your own. That's plagiarizing content and takes away from the original video's reach and visibility for the algorithm. I'm perfectly content with the options I laid out above. If you'd like to promote any of my videos, that's all I'll say on this. Sorry for the Discord ping, that was probably like my mom or something. And then he comes back and gives me a bit of attitude here, it seems. Well, that's why I asked you first, fluffy cat, whatever the fuck. The endorsement for your content would be visible because I'd add something at the start, giving you credit, and ask people to check out your channel. All of these things he can do without taking my raw file and uploading it on his own channel. What a form of collaborative effort, and people would have seen that we are invested in the community. We, what is this we? By showcasing other creators' work. You can do that without the raw file, which I point out. I later give some different options, ways that he can market. There's a methodology here. I'm not really out to steal your thunder, I promise. Like Pierre had said in his document, which I didn't go over, but you take a look, there's a part where he says, like, you know, just trust me, bro. Like, that's what this is communicating to me. You know, there's a methodology here, just trust it. You know, trust me, I got this. I'm not really out to steal your thunder. And here he says, yeah, I could download the video from YouTube, but the quality won't be as good as the original export. It's illegal to download someone else's video to post on your own channel on YouTube directly against YouTube Terms of Service. I'm just like, he's digging his own grave here. And this conversation was difficult to reread and explain, but we will soldier on. Only asking on this one occasion because of how useful the beginner's guide is and important as many people see it as possible. And I am confident that I did my best with the search engine optimization, the thumbnails, and the content and the production on that channel, and it will do great on my channel. Why make my own version when we've already created something great, essentially, lol. Well, there's a lot of content out there to produce regarding Arcanists because I'm the only active content creator. So if I happen to post a beginner's guide, there's a mountain of other fantastic content possibilities that you can pursue, and there's a lot of views to be had out there. So yeah, try one of those. And so I'm a little bit terse here. Yeah, short, I'm a bit annoyed. I'm glad you see the usefulness of it, but no thanks. Wanted to work a bit more closely with content creators because you guys are one of the core ways of advertising and marketing the game. Okay, that is true. Okay, no problem. And I'm just asking him here, do you have any plans for your YouTube? Just to kind of distract. And he says, yep, not just YouTube. What content are you planning out? I'm not stopping until Arcanist surpasses Worms in popularity. That seems to be a theme. He's mentioned that on occasion throughout his time working for Arcanists. Just the trailer right now, he says, which we'll get to the trailer, but he had introduced that to me back in January, and it's still not done. And he says, I'm seeking a director of content creation, so work on the Arcanists official channel will be a joint collaborative effort by several individuals. So this idea that maybe there's a separate YouTube for Arcanists and everyone collaborates on it and posts their own videos, a bit of a large undertaking, but could potentially be valuable. But again, it's all kind of potential. It's future. These are not things that are done at this moment. So I was just like, all right, cool. I'm going to head off, night. And then he says, night. But then he says, maybe we could do a joint commentary or something one day if you'd like. Parentheses, I'm really not as big of an ass as some people make me out to be, Ruffle. So I just said, good night. Moving on to his need to consistently justify himself, this involves consistently communicating, unprompted, his efforts in attempting to secure the Jagex deal and interfacing with Jagex, okay? I have countless screenshots of Siggy demonstrating his role navigating this deal. Here is some around leadership and his core values, and autocratic versus strategic leadership, and a leadership policy document. And this one is pretty telling. I'm not here to stand in your way of doing your job in a moderation capacity. You and our team of volunteers in the various roles have the power to determine a final decision. Context for this is I was a bit frustrated with some things and I had brought them to his attention, and so he followed up with me in direct messages and said this. And of course he's again justifying himself. You can bet that if I didn't manage behaviors to a degree in the past, managing that over time, Jagex wouldn't have even opened a line of communication with us. Okay? And you can see as we scroll down, there's just a bunch that following that message, the one that I just read. He just spammed all this, 700 words. Here's one example, another example, and only taken 3 years for me to direct all of this change, and oh, here's just another example. It goes on. You guys can take a look more deeply if you'd like. Okay, so moving on to snooping DMs. Some context, Siggy does not conduct reports. Okay, so he's not a moderator, and here's one instance of him snooping my DMs where I simply told a friend, Facebook ads are not in Siggy's marketing plan. And so he claimed he was looking through reports and followed up with me in DMs when he saw this. Like I said, even though he's not a moderator, and I included his last report, closed in 12/30/2022, so December 30th, 2022. Okay? Just so you guys know, I doubt he was actually looking through reports, and why would you read someone's logs, especially with something as so minor as this? I mean, if I was just like spouting slurs, then I understand, okay, perhaps you just stumble upon it and that would be important. But his justification was, well, I haven't shared the plan of action with anyone yet. Potentially Facebook ads could be in the cards. But I'm just like, you don't read DMs, especially of anyone. I was just going to say especially of a staff, but just across the board. It's unacceptable. So, moving on, no accountability or awareness, putting others down. Many of these screenshots involve Nate. Okay, you guys may not know who he is. He's a developer of a Wizards game called Arcmages, and Siggy has been in close competition with him since Arcanists first got on the map several years ago. Okay, and so I won't go over these too much, but you will see that he is quite aggressive toward our friend Nate. Not really our friend, but I just said it that way. You know how it is. So, moving on, there's a pretty telling screenshot here. I mean, how can I hope to make a difference if literally nobody tells me, nobody DMs me to voice concerns or ask questions at any point? So again, I would challenge Siggy to think one step deeper about that. So why might people be reticent to voice concerns to you, and what could you potentially do to resolve that? Okay, that's one thing to think about. Moving on, I won't go through this section too much, but I call him a bit of a faux facilitator. He will claim that he is here to facilitate conversations and enable volunteers to just contribute and help facilitate conversations, productive discussions, things of that nature, right? Here are some of the screenshots around these conversations. It's a little bit hard to glean like the frustration that I was feeling, But for those of you who might know Siggy a little bit, you may be able to pick up on the tone or the difficulties that I was having, the frustrations that I was feeling. But I'll leave those there for you to form your own opinion. Okay, I'm not going to dive into this too much. So here in this last screenshot, Siggy explains, and this is around my resignation, I think the underlying problem here was that leadership hierarchy and staffing expectations weren't clear enough, resulting in internal conflict, in addition to clear bias from a select few people aimed at a number of individuals. So in reality, my issues were with him, not with leadership hierarchy, staffing expectations, roles, business management, hierarchy, whatever else. None of these corporate buzzwords had to do with my issues. What had to do with my issues was Siggy's behavior. And he didn't realize that or pick up on that, instead just assumed, oh, I fixed the leadership hierarchy, come back, Coevil. Not quite on the mark. So, scrolling down, this is important to note his goal of changing behaviors. You can see this. He's pretty prescriptive and corrective, just meaning like I'm going to correct people. I'm going to fix people instead of just, moderating or realizing that people are not, we're not in control of others. We can manage them to a certain extent through moderation, sometimes DMs, but at a certain point, if someone's being super stubborn, you can't quote unquote change them. And so here's a few screenshots where he voices that changing behaviors is crucial. And moving on, some stats fixation, bunch of Steam stats screenshots as Pur had mentioned. It's just all he did, it seemed. And then here, oh, this one was annoying. I was just explaining to someone a reason behind a new Day 1 supporter Discord badge that we have. Just a nice badge that says, hey, I donated on Day 1 of our Steam wishlist release. And I was just saying that like, oh, this is like a marketing move, the Day 1 supporter badge. Yay, the wishlist is out. Everyone, come check out Arcanists. And he just used that comment to respond and promote more of his marketing BS. And more of this, I've had 3 years to do that, 3 years to do this, I've worked very hard, etc. Asking about Steam. My hands are tied, but Steam would logically be the next big step. I've done a lot of prep work to cover. Whichever avenue we'll end up taking. I expect to share more news about our future at the very latest by the end of Q1 2024. That would have been about 7 months ago. Various reasons as to why I'm being a bit vague ATM, Peepo, whatever the hell that is. It's just almost a meme to him. We have a soon TM emote in the Discord, which is basically a meme around how long it had took Siggy to secure this license deal, which is of course now in jeopardy. Again, here we have, it could literally all kick off either next week or in a month, or never. Almost certainly doubt the latter. LOL. Literally just a signature required now. Note the date, January 12th, 2024. I'm going to start looking at compiling some clips together for a new official trailer, January 27th. And here again, I re-screenshotted. Got any plans for YouTube? Oh, I'm just working on the trailer. What is that? July 27th, so 6 months later. And a couple more screenshots there. And the last one, just a quickie. He reverted one of my mutes once with no discussion. It was a simple 2-hour mute on a Arcanist Discord member. And even though I was in the right or not, I'm not arguing that like, oh, I was completely justified in, this or that. But he should at very least talk to me, right? This is how you conduct any sort of business or community, like anything. Communication is really vital. So anyway, guys, that about wraps up the summary of the drama, the Reader's Digest, or in some ways it was a deep dive too. That's about it. In spite of all this drama, I would be cautiously optimistic. Pur and the dedicated volunteer team here at Arcanists are committed to the future of the game, and he's actively working to come to an agreement with Siggy as we speak. So overall, again, drop a like and subscribe. Appreciate all your support. Feel free to give your perspective in the comments. Don't forget to be civil, and have a great day.